Commonly known by the pseudonyms Ronald Doe or Robbie Mannheim, 14-year-old Ronald Hunkeler was the boy that inspired the book and movie The Exorcist. In January of 1949, Ronald's Aunt Harriet passed away. Being an only child, his aunt had been one of his closest playmates growing up. It is often noted that she was a spiritualist who had introduced Ronald to Ouija boards. This may or may not have had anything to do with Ronald's possession, but it's worth noting as the strange behavior in the Hunkeler's Cottage City, Maryland home started immediately after her death. In the beginning, noises were heard, tapping or dripping. Furniture would move on its own and objects would be seen levitating around the room. These things only seemed to happen in Ronald's presence. The initial assumption was that it was the spirit of Harriet. They asked the spirit to leave them alone, and it seemed to only make things worse. The Hunkeler family had long been faithful Lutherans, and as such, they went to their local pastor, Luther Mile Schultz. Schultz had an interest in parapsychology and wanted to study the boy. He had Ronald Hunkeler spend the night in his home so he could observe the child's behavior. Throughout the night, Schultz noted the same actions as what had happened in the Hunkeler home. Objects and furniture moved on their own. Schultz advised that the family reach out to the Catholic Church. Ronald was admitted to Georgetown University Hospital in Washington, D.C., where he received his first exorcism by Edward Hughes. Hughes strapped Ronald to his hospital bed. He begun the rites of exorcism. As Father Hughes prayed, Ronald worked his right hand free, and he dug one of the springs out of the mattress and seized the opportunity to slash Hughes' arm. Wounded and bleeding, the priest could not proceed. During the day, Ronald seemed like a perfectly ordinary teenage boy. But at night, the strangeness continued, and it continued to increase. His bed would shake, scratches would appear on his body. At times, these scratches even spelled out words. Among them were the words Lewis, spelled out across Ronald's ribs. Odell, Ronald's mother, was from St. Louis, and she had been considering taking Ronald there to visit her mother. She figured it would be a great escape from the events of the home. The problem was that the events had less to do with the home and far more to do with Ronald himself. Shortly after Ronald and his mother arrived at the home in Belnor, Missouri, a northwestern suburb of St. Louis, several family members witnessed the bed shake and move on its own. His cousin was a student at St. Louis University, which was a Jesuit institution. He went to Father Raymond J. Bishop at the school and told him what was going on. After a meeting between the family, Bishop, and the school president, Bishop agreed to go to the Belnor home and pray with Ronald. During his visit, he saw scratches as if claws appeared on his stomach, and he observed the bed moving and shaking on its own. Bishop then went to Father William S. Bodern, the pastor of St. Francis Xavier Church in St. Louis, and enlisted his help. Father Bodern was a more experienced priest than Bishop, and he agreed to take the lead on the case. From March 11th until the 16th, the two priests observed Ronald in his home, gathering the needed information for the exorcism. Finally, on the 16th, they received permission from the Archbishop and began. The exorcism took more than a month, finally concluding on April 18th, the day after Easter. In Alexian Brothers Hospital, the priests surrounded Ronald's bed with religious artifacts and called upon St. Michael to battle the devil for control of Ronald's body. Ronald contorted violently, and then, as if coming out of a daze, he simply said, "He's gone." Now, there are, of course, those who will say that Ronald Hunkeler was mentally ill, or that he faked it all for attention, or to get out of school or something. Schultz has also been accused of exaggerating his observations by parapsychologist Joseph Banks Rhine. In the writings of Raymond Bishop in what has become known as the Exorcist Diary, the source work for the original novel, he has been accused of embellishing a lot of the happenings. And maybe if this story ended there, I would accept that. But unlike the fictitious Hollywood sensation, neither priest died. No one threw themselves down a flight of stairs. Ronald's back didn't snap in half, leaving him paralyzed like Reagan. Hunkeler went on to become a NASA scientist, contributing to the Apollo missions and patenting a high-temperature ceramic compound for use in shielding to allow re-entry into the atmosphere. He passed away on May 10th, 2020, at the age of 85.